Welcome to Real Talks with Pinks. Thank you for joining us since we've been back from the channel. I have a special guest today, and she will introduce herself, and then I'll tell you the topic of the day.
Hey y'all, it's wonderful to be here. Ke Rethabile Ntereke Mofoka. Hannah, how you introduce her? Okay, I am married and I'm a mother of 3.
Mother of 3. That's what we're going to talk about. It's important to say she's a mother of 3. We are going to talk about motherhood. I did say I'm going to do a special feature now that I'm a mother and bring a couple of ladies to share their journeys of pregnancy, childbirth, and the like. So this is the first one today. So let's get straight into it. Rethabile, can you share your personal story of conception, childbirth, and yeah.
Okay, conception, childbirth, pregnancy, 1, couple 3. Couple just
the second pregnancy, but it's worth mentioning, obviously.
Okay, yes.
Just so you can compare our two different journeys.
Okay, so this latest pregnancy, it was quite a tough journey, to be honest. Sometimes we take for granted things that seem natural. We take for granted conceiving, we take for granted being able to sustain a life in the womb for the duration in the womb for, and it ends up becoming this shocking thing. Like the minute there's trouble or you struggle a little bit in this journey. So last year, the year before, I conceived towards the end of the year. My husband and I, we have a 7-year-old, and the journey was difficult. I think, first of all, it's the gap between the previous pregnancy and this one, and just how as kids get older, they give you more independence. So all of a sudden, we're back to where your body is literally not your own. Because I think that way of pregnancy, it's sort of like having an outer body experience where you are in your body, but it's like you're watching things happen with your body and feeling things that are not necessarily normal to you. So this particular pregnancy was quite tough. We found out about it probably like a month or 2 in, and we went and got a scan done, and immediately the doctor said, I think you're having twins.
Yes.
And it was a very long drive from the hospital home. It was very quiet in the car. Obviously, this is quite a personal journey, so I'll share a bit. My husband, he loves kids. In his opinion, we should have had them in the first 3 or 4 years of our marriage and been done. And obviously, as a mom, you're the one whose body carries this life, and you're developing, you're growing, you're going through a lot. So I needed a bit of a break in between. And I think when you plan life together with someone, it's easy to speak because you don't really know what's gonna come or how it's gonna feel. So the plan was, we'll have number 1 and then maybe skip for 8-10 months and then start trying for another one. We wanted to have 3 kids. And then, another year or so later, we go again. But that was the whole idea. But obviously after the first pregnancy and that journey trying Hudisangwana, it was evident to me very quickly that it's not gonna be that simple. So it took as long as it took, and we're here now. So this time around, it was I was sick a lot. The pregnancy was very heavy. There were a lot of issues, and also obviously I was in a pregnancy that's categorized as high risk
because of the twins.
Because it was twins. Yes. So I was having to go to the doctor a lot more than I did before. I was having to watch what I eat, how much water I was a bit more conscious of what I ate, how I slept, how I all of that, trying to keep everyone safe. But it was a very difficult journey for me, even personally, trying to think. I think it was overwhelming just thinking about the life that I live. You begin to think about, do I have the money for it? Is the house big enough?
Yes.
Is the one nanny going to be enough? you know, like, can people support me enough that I feel like I'm not disappearing in this journey?
How old are the twins, by the way, now?
They're 10 months old.
So do you have one nanny? Is one nanny?
No, definitely not enough.
Okay, now we know one nanny is not enough for twins.
Definitely not enough. Especially with like another child in the house. I think if it was just the twins, we might have managed, you know.
Yeah.
So also working a full-time job. I'm fortunate that I have a boss who is been really supportive. She let me work from home when the pregnancy was advancing a bit more, and that really gave me a lot of leeway to find myself even as I was struggling in the journey. It was a very difficult pregnancy.
You were sickly a lot.
I was. One of the babies was low lying. The other one was lying against my rib cage. So it was
bed rest.
I was towards the end, and also the twins were born premature. They were born at 33 weeks and 4 days, so roughly close to 7 months.
Yeah, that's quite young.
They were very young.
So did you have to
We spent a lot of time in the hospital after the birth. Had to have an emergency C-section, and then they had to stay in the hospital. They were born at 1.7 kg and 1.818.
That's small.
So they were small, yeah.
That's small.
And when I went into labor, it was traumatic. Because I was home, I had a bit of a flu, and all of a sudden I'm experiencing symptoms, you know, like obviously when you've been through childbirth before, it's like, I know what this is. I don't even have a bag packed yet because it's like 6 months, you know, like we're far away from anything that I'm thinking of. The baby's bags were packed and I was done, but my personal bag, nothing like that. So just striving to get to the hospital. We drove 2 hours to get to the hospital. We got there. And they were convinced that I had an infection which was causing the premature labor, because there was nothing wrong with the baby, so to speak. But they were in distress, so the doctors were trying to figure out what was wrong. And then once I got diagnosed with the infection that they figured I should have, and they started treating me, they tried to slow the labor down. So I spent 3 days in the hospital, and then they were just trying to monitor if the situation is fine, because their heart rates had slowed down and everything seemed normal. They were ready to send me back home. So we came back home, and then 2 days later, I am in labor again. And then we drive back to the hospital again. So this time around, I think the doctors were just like, let's just, you know, deliver to avoid further problems, because even my husband and I were just like, no, if this is happening again, we're not going to be comfortable to be so far away from the doctor with whom we were, you know, seeking care through the pregnancy. So we were there. It was a Saturday morning, 7 a.m., 7:21 a.m. The first twin came, baby boy, 1.8 kg. Second twin came 5 minutes later. And like I said, it was a C-section. It was also my first experience with a C-section birth, because I had given birth naturally before. We stayed in the hospital for about 3 weeks, and being away from my mother, being away from my husband, my firstborn, and just the support network that I am used to, has to have been the most difficult part, and not having time to let my body heal, because I was literally in the hospital for 3 days. They were in the hospital for 3 weeks. So I was staying like in a B&B across the road from the hospital, and every few hours of the day, like I would have to come to breastfeed, I would have to come to bring nappies, to bring, like if stuff would run out, I'd have to walk to the mall to go purchase, to bring them to the hospital. So I wasn't really even able to mentally, psychologically, physically have time to heal.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of crying, you know, like my husband was also, his passport was expiring during this time. So he was having to be away from me for that time. I think having him in the same, you know, in the same room, in the same space, made everything so much easier, because that first week we were together, and even when I moved out to go into the guest house, he was still there. When he had to leave to come home, like I was a wreck. And my mom would come, she would spend a couple of days, she would bring my firstborn so that we could get some time in, because the transition hadn't really, like, we had explained to her that we were having babies and she knew they were coming, but because of how the delivery and the emergency situation happened, we left when she was in school, or she was out of the house when we left. And when she got home, mommy wasn't there, daddy wasn't there. And it was really important to us to make sure that she's a part of this whole journey, to make sure that, because obviously also you're trying for babies when you have a 7-year-old, so there's something that she understands about this transition. It's unlike if maybe your son was having a sibling now, because he's still so young. He wouldn't understand it.
Yeah, you're saying a lot of things, and I'm thinking, I want to fast forward to you now having to come back home. The transition of raising twins. You have a 7-year-old. One baby can take over your life. Now there has to be 2, but you have to incorporate the 7-year-old because you can't just neglect him. How were you able to adjust to raising the twins? How were you able to be supported? How are you managing, and how are you so beautiful with 10-month-old babies?
Thank you.
I'd be a wreck.
I promise you wouldn't. I think sometimes when we think about things, they're a lot more terrifying than when you're actually living the reality of them, to be honest. But the transition was hard, man. I think when the pediatrician came in that morning and said, I think they're ready to go home. So they had said the milestone that we're looking for is 2 kg, because also they had lost weight while they were in the NICU. They lost weight, and obviously, in the beginning there, it's, and as they started to gain weight, like, and you were celebrating every day, like, oh, praise the Lord, So when the pediatrician finally said, I'm ready to send you guys home, I was like, but no, we're not at 2 kg yet. Because I think I had gotten so used to the fact that I had medical care 24 hours around the clock on both of them. And it felt terrifying to take them home and not know if, because one of them had jaundice, and one of them had like a respiratory thing going on, like she was born in respiratory distress. So it was just, I knew they were fine because the vents were out and the drip and the feeding tubes, everything was off of them. Like, they were now cup feeding them, and I would breastfeed when I was there, and express and leave milk for them and all of that. But having to take them home and knowing that it would be me who would be solely responsible for them. That was the most traumatizing part. So hubby and my mom-in-law came to the hospital. We drove, we came back home. And I sort of, like, obviously, like, I'm a person that's very verbally expressive. So I just told them, like, this is what I fear, this is where I am. And my mother-in-law was like, we're gonna pray, the Holy Spirit is gonna make a plan, and God's gonna come through. So the drive home was fun, it was great. They slept through the whole drive home. Then I went home to my mom's house to spend like a week there. I think it was more for my mom than it was for me, to be honest, because I just felt like I just want to go home to my husband and to my life. Because also the critical part of Botswetse, that beginning stage, I've done alone, so it didn't really feel like I still needed to be nursed. I felt ready to sort of kick back into life. But I knew my mom was just struggling with not having had time to sort of take care of me. And so I went and I was home with her for like a week or two. And then eventually I went back home to my husband and my family. So that transition, I think that's when I can say I had now the full responsibility, because our moms, they hover, they take care of everything. So you get to sleep a lot, you get to rest a lot. Somebody makes a plan for what you're eating. You don't have to wash your clothes. You really literally do nothing but bath and go back to bed. And it was really golden to have that, and it healed something in me, to be honest, as well. But now being home, even if you have help, you have people that are there to help you with the cooking and the whatever, it's still, I need to tell them, like, maybe it's men's today, or maybe it's,
Yeah,
whatever.
of
You
course,
still need
that's
to
your
make
house.
the decisions. So they're waiting on you for direction, and mentally you're not really in the space where you're ready to start in
Taking
that
over.
strong. The transition was most difficult for my 7-year-old. Like, she had the most difficult time with it. When we were first in Maseri East with mom, every day after school, mom would bring her, and we would like just spend a couple of hours together. And then when her dad got off work, he would come and pick her up and take her home, and then they would sleep, and then next morning she goes to school, mom goes to pick her up and brings her again, just so that she doesn't feel replaced. Because I think she was struggling with just feeling like she wants to get to know the babies, she wants to be around the babies, but she also wants her mom. So we really tried very hard to make sure that she was supported, and we could really talk about how she felt, like where she was with the whole transition. So even when we got back home, we just made sure that she spent a lot of time with them, and like got to pick them up, got to like talk to them, learn how to just be around them and what they needed. She cried a lot, because some evenings you would find that you would find that like we're trying to put them to bed. I have one, my husband has the other twin, and we're just rocking them and just trying to get them settled, and she just wants attention, and she just can't handle. She's just standing in the corner. She would stand in the corner, literally in the middle of the night, stand in the corner and just start to cry. And that was really heartbreaking. Because she's still a child, she's older and she has to understand that she's a big sister now, but we still wanted to give her that love and comfort. So that's about the transition.
I'm listening to your story. Your mom features a lot, your husband features a lot, your mother-in-law features a lot. I'm sitting here in the shoes of a single parents wondering, how do they do it? And I'm just like, that's not easy. Because I can tell support system was important for you. Because otherwise I can't imagine how you'd have done it without your support system.
I have no idea. There was a moment during the Christmas break when the people that help us, the nannies, are gone. So it's me, it's hubby. Hubby also has like an entrepreneurial journey that he's on. And obviously, they are not around. They're home in Tabateka and Leribe.
That's just you.
He's got to show up. So if he was showing up there, it meant that I had to be full on with the kids by myself, the 3 of them. There was a moment when I feel like I am losing my mind right now. Like I would cry, and I would just let myself, and my firstborn would be like, Mom, why are you crying? She would panic, like, why are you crying? I'm like, no, mommy just feels overwhelmed, I'm stressed and I don't know what to do. She's like, are you better? And she would hug me, and and sometimes it's like, that's the very thing that makes you come back into, like, I've got to pull it together. But the support system is the support system is everything. Like, kudos to single moms. Like, you guys are so amazing. You are so strong. I can't even imagine.
So tell us, now going back to work, because you say you have a full-time job, how was that? Because we have to talk about now, how are you juggling your life with twins and a 7-year-old plus going back to work full-time?
So when I went back to work, I still had one nanny. That's where we learned this is not gonna work. I still have one nanny, and obviously, as you know, with newborns, they need a lot of attention. They need to be held, to be rocked. It's not very easy when there's 2 of them, especially when they're tiny babies, because it also means because they are still so fragile, So they both have to be carried and whatnot.
Were you expressing?
I was nursing. Yes, I was nursing. I was expressing all of that. The hardest thing I've ever tried to do in my life was try to exclusively breastfeed. Like, I can't even imagine what I was thinking.
No, you're strong.
But I'm still grateful that I did it.
Guys, also expressing and breastfeeding.
Get full-time job. That's what I usually say about it. So going back to work, I was still going to be working for the same employer, but during the whole, pregnancy, home situation, I had applied for a position in the same company, and I had got called for an interview, and I actually got this position that I had wanted.
Okay.
So I was going into a new role when I went back to work, which wasn't really it didn't really feel new because I was still going in the same department that I was working in, just, a different role. So it didn't really feel new, but the blessing in it was going to be that I get to work from home. The blessing and the curse, I don't want to say curse, but the difficulty and the fun of it was going to be that I get to work from home 3 weeks out of a month.
Oh, okay.
So I have 1 week where I have to be in the office.
Okay.
So the transition was hard in the sense that I am back at work, full productivity is expected of me, but I am still at the house. The babies are still crying. And I can't just shut the door and be like,
be in office mode.
She'll handle it. You can't do that, especially because I'm nursing as well. If they cry, you start to feel tingles and your body is telling you
kudos to mothers.
You've gotta go help. Sure. So sometimes I would just go to the next room and pick one of them up and come back to my workspace and just let the person that helps me continue and try and soothe the other one. And then when she would be calm, also my youngest daughter just loves attention. She just wants to be held.
Is it true what they say
She's
that
a lovey.
Twins, even if the other one was not crying, when one cries, the other follows?
Yeah, there are definitely seasons like that, but then there are also seasons where they are just a dream. Everybody's quiet, nobody
and
cries.
Just playing, and it's nice.
They're only gonna be fussy when they're hungry or need to be changed. But for the most part, yeah.
I've seen this play out. Murphy has a twin friend, and yesterday actually we had a play date.
Nice.
Chochi's twins. I've seen Chochi and the husband have to take care of it. The other one was just crying, and the other one has to eat. There's 2 chairs, and everything is double. Honestly, I was traumatized the first time I visited the twins, and I was like, you guys make it look so easy, but I can tell it's not.
It really isn't.
Raising twins is not easy, guys.
It really isn't, and it takes a toll on the relationship also between spouses. That's also something that should not be taken for granted.
So how are you able to still have time for your husband with the twins plus the 7-year-old? Don't neglect the marriage.
It's been neglected. It's been neglected, but I think we're slowly getting back in the swing of things now because they're older. They don't demand as much attention. How are we juggling it all and not neglecting each other? In the beginning, you have no choice but to neglect something. Something is going to suffer. I listened to an interview where Michelle Obama was talking about career, family and personal goals and your friendships and how to balance all of that. And she said, you can have all of it, but just not at the same time. And I think that's one of the things that really freed me. I love that statement so much.
I also read a book on Indra Nooyi was the CEO of PepsiCo at the time. So Indra Nooyi says, I was never a hands-on mother just because my mom and my mom-in-law were hands-on. And my husband.
Yeah.
I was never going to be CEO, be a mom, be fully present. Something must suffer. And the order is my job, my kids, my parents. My husband comes last, and he already knows. So something has to suffer at a certain point, and then you pick it up later. And you just need a support system that understands.
Works, and that's fully there for you.
Because that's a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. My husband suffered for a very long time because I think also even postpartum body, postpartum mind, memory, all of these things, it takes a while for you to come back into even you are lost to yourself. So you can't really be thinking about anything else. The babies demand attention, so they'll get their attention because they'll cry if they don't get what they need. But second to the babies, you're just trying to survive this new journey, So I think he definitely suffered for a while, and it's nice that you get to have maternity leave that's a bit extended. And then when you break out of the maternity leave, then again something has to suffer, because even my intention for this year was to go back to school. Pregnancy, it's not necessarily you're planning and whatnot. Yes, you wanted it at the back of your mind, but it wasn't really the plan now. So my intention was to have gone back to school now. I had an admission from a prestigious university that I've always wanted to go to, and I had to give that up. Yeah, so that's one of the things that I decided, like, I'm just gonna put this on the back burner. Like, I'll just email them and see if I can't postpone my admission to like the following year. If that's possible, then let's do that. If it's not possible, then we will start the application process again. But my husband and I think, are a bit more intentional. The other thing that I was gonna say that I think has been really important is, as couples, sometimes when there is a lot of room, apart from kids, there's a lot of room in our marriages. There's a lot of room for you to pursue your dreams, for you to also be there and do your own thing. So you don't really rely on each other as much as you do when there's trouble or when there's a little baby. So I think it's really taken away a lot of the, I don't want to say selfishness, but individuality that we were sort of settling back into as the firstborn is growing older and she doesn't really need attention as much. There's a rhythm that you sort of naturally fall into. And I think I love just how much we have had to depend on one another. Literally now, like, I don't get to complain that you're leaving your socks on the floor. I'm not complaining about petty things like that right now. It's crunch time, you know, it's crunch time. Yeah.
I'm just waiting for Karachi to tell me how much time is left. I want to wrap up. Because the last bit is, I mean, we hovered through it when you were saying your journey. But I think when I invited you to the channel, I had shared a small clip about, sometimes we probably take it for granted because we see so many people with kids. But conceiving is not a child's play. No. Even if some of us will say in quotes have had it easy and maybe our pregnancies were not so traumatic, but I know so many people that have gone through things, either a difficult pregnancy, miscarriages, fibroids, so many other things. What are you saying to new mothers and even those that are still wanting to be in the journey? Because otherwise motherhood is beautiful. As I look at it now, it's beautiful, but the journey is not always easy.
No, it's not. It's not child's play. It's a very difficult journey because it demands so much from you. And I think it's always important to make sure that when you enter into motherhood or you are striving for motherhood, that you are fully there, you're fully present, because I think we do so much damage in bringing kids to the world and not creating room enough in our hearts and our lives to accommodate them, to love them, to teach them, to correct them. But I think in terms of the difficulties of pregnancy, I just want to say, don't lose heart. If you're struggling to conceive, if you're struggling to keep like a pregnancy and carry to term, just don't, if it's really something that you want, just like, obviously, like I'm a Christ, so now I would say pray, just supply, take that before the Lord, you know, and let him know. And I've seen God answer prayers 10, 11 years down the line. People have been trying for conception and they're able to, you know, to conceive and to have children. But I also think sometimes as women, we love to define ourselves by the relationships around us, whether it's our kids, it's our spouses, it's our friendships. And sometimes it's a nice journey of reflection when maybe you're struggling. As I struggled previously and lost a pregnancy that I really wanted, it was really a journey of reflection into, but who am I apart from these things, apart from my job, apart from being my husband's wife, apart from being a mom and wanting to be a mom again. And can something more than just those roles define me? And I know it's different things for different people, but for me, it was really a journey back into God, where I had become so independent and autopilot. Like, you're on autopilot, you're in control, but also your life is under Christ's headship, and it really isn't. So sometimes it's really a journey of reflection and really finding your worth again, even if it's not in this or that. But I think it's really important as women to really learn to love ourselves, even when we are unable to anything. It's just, you're worthy of love, you're important, and you're still alive, so there's still a purpose to your life. And I think that's the most important thing, because I think after losing that pregnancy in 2022, it really challenged my womanhood. Like, you know, I had taken for granted so much how easy it is, because of my first pregnancy wasn't even planned. I had a honeymoon baby. And like I went to work the Monday that I went into labor, Monday night, the following morning I had a baby. And I was at work that Monday.
Wow.
So I was active, I was strong, it didn't affect me. That pregnancy did not affect me at all. Like I felt so much more alive and excited. And this one was the exact opposite. And also obviously having lost another pregnancy, which also resulted in a near-death experience, because the medical care in this country can be so careless. These private hospitals of ours had botched a procedure. I wound up in an emergency room, having to undergo operations to correct mistakes that were made by doctors here. I literally like couldn't bath, couldn't eat, couldn't nothing. To stand right, you know. And having gone through that experience, you really don't take for granted. That clip that you're referring to, in a buaka hore, how much stress that pregnancy puts on a woman's body, and can she pass the test and carry the pregnancy to term, and how can we support women so that they can. So for me, it's really something that I no longer take for granted. And I want to say to young mothers, like, you know, you matter beyond your kids. Your kids are very important, but you matter, and you are amazing, and you're doing so much better than you think. I know we're so critical of ourselves as young mothers, but yeah, you matter. Find time for yourself.
Self-care.
Yes.
Self-care is
Find time for
This
self.
is my self-care.
Amen. And welcome back, man. We've missed this so much.
Anyway, we've said a mouthful. Thank you for sharing your journey, and
Glad
honestly,
to.
thank you for coming to the channel and sharing your journey. I know our viewers will appreciate it so much, and being so vulnerable with your story.
Yeah.
And say hi to the twins and the 7-year-old.
I will.
And to the real MVPs, your support system. Kudos to them.
But wow.
We're still standing because of them, honestly.
Absolutely.
So guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Don't forget to suggest all the other topics that you want us to discuss on Real Talks with Pinks. Thank you. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.